Uh, One of the reasons I talk about this topic so much is because it's like it's part of reclaiming your heritage, man. Anyone who says, "Hey, don't you pay no attention to history now? You don't need to know none of that." Why? Why is that a problem? Why is me knowing my history and yours for that matter? You have a history too, my friend. And maybe you should look into that. It's not, I mean, like I said, I got that word, the, raise up thy voice like a trumpet and declare the sins, man, unto the people, man. Basically, the sins of our forefathers, man. So that's one of the part of reconnecting with your history is see where your forefathers went wrong and see where man's forefathers in general just went wrong. You know what I'm saying? And there's many examples of this. And it's no crime to know your history unless you're trying to cover up and hide something, man. You know what I mean? I mean, I understand this is a very slippery slope, man. There's a lot of disinformation and misinformation. So, I mean, it's a lot of people get hung up on the wrong things. You can look at the Nazis, for instance, and how they started to believe in fairy tales. And they actually killed people over fairy tales. The Arthurian Knights, King Arthur's Knights. Though King Arthur was real, the stories wrote about him were fantasizations, man. Romanticizations, man. Partial truths. But I mean, I don't know. Maybe there's lies in that because a lot of stuff they tell us is not true. Maybe there's more truth to it than we realize. But when it comes to history, it's something you need to know. I mean, and even when you read the Bible, you read the Old Testament because you want to know your history. You know what I'm saying? You want to know world history, even though it doesn't describe everything about world history in there. It's an overview. Now, everything else you read about world history, you got something to divide it by. You know what I'm saying? And to put it into context for you. Because when I read Indian legends, it confirms the Noah event. It doesn't deny it. You know what I'm saying? So why would you discourage me from looking into this stuff? And especially when it's been heavily suppressed. Shouldn't, when Jesus said everything is hidden shall be revealed. Disclosure. Apocalypse means disclosure. This is part of the fulfilling of scripture. And people are just kind of oblivious to it, man. Sometimes that weighs heavy on me, man, that people don't, it's like they're too defensive, man, it's like they get so one-dimensional. It's just like the Pharisee. They didn't want to hear nothing Jesus had to say. He was speaking on their doctrine, but he was expounding it. And then even accurately interpreting it for people. And he's like, don't you even know that men from the beginning of time wanted to know these things? I'm telling you now. But Jesus also says to his disciples that there was things he could not tell them because they could not yet bear them. And even me in my life, there's times I wanted to know things. I wasn't ready to bear them at the time. You know what I'm saying? I would have stumbled with it. You know what I mean? It would have, that's how these things work sometimes. First you got to get broke before God can build you back up. It's almost like it said, he is he's the one who works the potter's clay. You know what I'm saying? And it's like, and it says when we must be born again, it's in a way, it's like we're shattered vessels. It's a pile of vessels of history is like that. But God can take those pieces, make the clay wet again, and build it up again. If you allow him, access in your life. I mean, he can do that in the world around you, independent of you, and sovereign of you. But if you read his witness and his testimony, that's really he's trying to share with us. You know what I'm saying? These things he does. It's not. It's crazy. He wanted man to keep his word and do right on the earth. You know what I mean? But the fathers have forgot. They fell asleep. You know what I'm saying? For a long time, generations, the chains have been broken. But God's gonna reestablish some things. You know what I'm saying? That have been lost, and it's gonna ruffle a lot of feathers. But I want to speak on, all right, I seen in England how there's these things called fairy mounds. Over here in America, they might be called burial grounds. You know what I'm saying? I'm not sure exactly, but the fairy mounds are druids and their graves, potentially, I think, or tribal-like people that inhabited those isles before they were conquered by Rome. There's a lot of crazy stuff happened over there. And like I said, there may be a Phoenician connection. So there's many hidden things about all the whole world, man. How more interconnected it is. But I seen how there's this castle where they intentionally went and disturbed the fairy mounds and built the temple or the castle on top of it so they could channel spiritual energy and use it to contact things from the spirit world, basically. And in America, you find, I mean, you see this Illuminati symbolism where it's a old picture and it shows a bunch of skeletons built in a pyramid, and on top of it is the real pyramid in the all-seeing eye. And that's their philosophy, is that they build new governments on top of the former inhabitants. They conquer, kill everyone, build their temples and cities on top of their graves. And I seen how in that movie Poltergeist, everyone died, and they say it's from an Indian curse, and they use real skeletons. And I mean, this is one of your real life events where it shows like there is validity to messing around with the supernatural things you don't understand. I've been detached from it. I don't know exactly. For a minute, I thought, you just bury anyone anywhere, and it's just all good. But then, now I'm looking back in the Bible now, and there's right ways about going about doing it. You know what I mean? And so reawakened to the fact that I was unaware that no, there is supernatural things that some people might just say are superstitious. Even me, I like to point the finger and say, "Oh, that's just superstitious." Sometimes, because I don't want to let myself go too deep into speculation about these supernatural things. But down in Tampa, I went downtown one night late at night. I was walking with my friends, we're kind of sightseeing, and I seen there was a plaque, and it said that, oh, this is the center spot of a tribe used to live here, and when we got here, there was a big graveyard here. So they intentionally built a city on top this burial ground, and it's really crazy. And it's like, is these people intentionally working some kind of black magic over the land? You know what I'm saying? In a way where like we conquer the spirits of this land. In a way, like they are aware of something like the old, nastier, ugly, we need your firstborn type of philosophies that have been always throughout society. These people are in control of who does the public planning, and you can look at Washington, D.C. and see that's a big geoglyph as well. And these things are everywhere. They're all over. In your local places, don't think you're immune. There's probably geoglyphs, modern ones, in your own neighborhood. When I was out in Flushing, I realized they were all around me. All these little signs and it's like gangs. They do something it's called tagging their territory, leaving their mark on a wall, on something, letting you know that they're there. Well, these people have been, that's based on what these people have been doing since the beginning of time with their graven images, their alchemical knowledge, you know what I'm saying, their esoteric knowledges, their mystery school knowledges. And it's always to kind of, hide things in plain sight. And in a way, it's kind of like the fact that you can't read the signs that you live under. In a way, in their mind, it's like, we are fit to rule you because we are over you and you don't even know it. So therefore, your lack of understanding is consent. You know what I mean? That's in their mind. That's what they think. This isn't what I think now. You know what I mean? It's the same thing with the whole peace treaty thing. Just like this guy, I watched this. His name was Ben the Ross, and it was about Ben Franklin and the Nine Sisters cult, and how they made this statue over there in Pennsylvania or Philadelphia, and it was a big. It showed how the founding fathers conned the Indians out of their basically heritage. But I mean, what it was, they struck a deal with the men, and in their culture, the women, they had a queen. So I mean, they were very modern. They were very much like England and all them other countries themselves. These Indians, that Six Nations Iroquois Confederacy. Over here was the Five Nations, the Fires Nation, which was, we warred with them people at times, but at other times, they're, like I said, man, it's Indian history is it's remote, but it's always in the tales. You can tell, there was times of war between tribes, and you can tell who's related, who ain't. And I'm telling you, people think all Indians come from the same guy or something, but it's not. That's not true. There's a lot of discrepancies, man. Like, if you look at Geronimo, hated serpents, hated the snakes. And if you look at the Mayans, loved the snake. Their god was a snake. It was the blood snake. And you can see why Geronimo and them didn't like snakes. Just like over here, our people, it's kind of weird. What I was thinking about earlier, the name of the shoes that our Indian wore up here they were called moccasins. It was an Ojibwe moccasin. And basically, a lot of shoes now are designed off this design. And it's funny that they're called moccasins and they're snakes called moccasins. So in a way, it's almost like you're stepping on snakes. You know what I mean? In a way, even in that custom there, it's like, it reminds me in the Bible, it says, you will bruise the serpent's head, but he will bruise your heel. You know what I mean? It reminds me of that. All the names of the land might have serpent names because the Indians weren't here all along. They occupied this land. So the names were of names of the land that the people before or after they pushed them out of the land, they took some of the names of the former people that were there, and that's how some of your bleed over names and stuff happens in Indian culture. Because look, we called Iroquois snakes. Everyone else called them Iroquois. It was just because we were enemy, and that was their characteristics, was snake-like. So I'm saying there's a big difference. There's a lot of snake-friendly tribes. There's beware tribes. We had a very snake beware type of a mindset. You know what I mean? But there's a lot of the land was named after the plumed serpent, the snake, Amaraku. So I mean, I've even heard, my grandma told me legends of giant snakes in Canada where it's cold, man. Snakes normally don't like the cold, but she said that, that they seen giant snakes in Canada, one going from one side of the road to the other. They ran it over and they drove away, and behind them it was standing up watching them like this. So I mean, I don't know. My grandma was Indian, full blood. So I mean, I don't know. Some people say, oh, they're just real superstitious, but are they? You know what I mean? Or is it just, are they describing the supernatural because it's real? It's not superstition. I mean, when you attribute things to things that are not, that's really what superstition is. It's like when you do something out of ignorance and you think that it's attributed to something, but it's really not. That's where superstition is. Like, if I step on that crack, I'm gonna break my back. That's stupid. That's not true. You know what I'm saying? That's a superstition. So I mean, you can look in between and see what's tradition, what's superstition, or what's a superstitious tradition. But like I said, it's hidden in plain sight about the Indians, their beliefs. You know what I'm saying? In a way, they always hate on that dude Longfellow in his book Hiawatha, but they also hate on Enoch, the book of Enoch. They say, oh, that's not accurate scripture because it's Christian friendly. You know what I'm saying? And if you read Hiawatha, it's very Bible friendly, and it depicts the man as a noble being, and it doesn't depict him as a savage and stupid and ignorant. So that's why there's a lot of down reviews of the book, because in a way, according to the times when the man wrote the book, it was very eugenics. It was very of a racist society. It was when eugenics was birthed. And since he went against the eugenics sway of hating on anything that's non-European royalty bloodline, everything that all has to be propagandized down and forgotten of and slandered, and you know what I'm saying? That's the best way I can describe it, and the same reason I catch so much shizzle from a lot of my brethren out here over this stuff. You know what I'm saying? A lot of haterade, a lot of prejudice, prejudgment on me about it, and prejudgment of it itself, the information, where you condemn the information and cast it down before you even look into it yourself. You know what I'm saying? You search daily to see if these things be true or not first, before you go ahead and just blame. Don't you have any fear of God that maybe you're speaking out of pride and not out of you know what I'm saying? That maybe are you reacting out of pride sometimes about certain things, about certain topics that are close to your heart and your indoctrination? Just just self-examine sometimes, man, as much as you examine others.